from their responsibilities in the party and in government. And we have had that. It's happening consistently. So we are dealing with this. The fact that you have a Madlanga commission and you've got a commission into the allegations made by Mkhwanazi in Parliament, that we've had various others, is actually, and that things are being exposed there, is as a result of the mechanisms which we've put in place and the leadership to say that, look, we're serious about making sure these issues are exposed. But I understand, having said that, more needs to be done. But also corruption is not something unique to a particular political party. We see allegations in the Democratic Alliance. You found Malusi Boy, who was the MACO member responsible for human settlements and housing in the city. We found his arrest is in court at the moment. So it's not unique to a particular political party. If we talk about allegations, there's allegations about almost every leader that's out there at the moment.
Okay.
But what we are saying is that let's not judge the political party purely on individuals. Let's look at what the principles are. And in various political formations, there are people who are not corrupt, whom you can work with. But let me also say on the issue of the DA in the Western Cape, actually, the majority of municipalities in the province, we've got over 50 odd municipalities in the Western Cape, not only Cape Town. The last election of 2021, the last local government election, the results showed majority of municipalities here are coalition municipalities. So even George at the moment is a coalition, which is a big municipality.
So the ANC intends to probably, with the current support base, look at that, expanding that coalition politics across the country, especially starting with
the Western Cape. And then let me say the Western Cape is not new to coalition politics.
Okay.
When we governed the Western Cape, as I said, in 2004, it was a coalition. The city of Cape Town, when the DA took over in 2006, Helen Zille led a coalition of well over 10 parties, including the African Muslim Party at the time and the PAC. So she led a big coalition. Coalition politics have become, not only in South Africa, but even globally. We've seen now Iraq, they're still struggling to put together a government at the moment. Coalition has become a reality. It's about how we navigate through it, what are the kind of principles that we push. But voters also, in order to avoid messy coalition politics where it becomes a free-for-all, I think voters need to ensure that they come out to vote, number one.
As a matter of fact, even before you could, I was just going to ask, what guarantees can you offer, that coalitions would be stable and service delivery focused and not driven by patronage. For example, if we look at Johannesburg, Johannesburg is an example of messy politics.
Completely.
Everything is falling apart, and the people that suffers are the ordinary people, not the politicians. It's ordinary people because of the type of differences that they have, and some of these differences are even trying to cover up corruption,
exactly,
etc. Here in the Western Cape, with the ANC trying to win back metros, because I sincerely hope that is the intention. How different are we going to be from a Johannesburg, for example?
Look, let me say firstly, we don't enter an election because we want coalition. We enter an election because we want to govern fully, right? But I'm giving you the realities that are there. We have already, if you look at when we were governing in the Western Cape, and I'm saying even at the city of Cape Town level, the city, and I think Ibrahim Rasool made this point at some point, the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape, despite who is the government, despite who governs, despite whether it's a coalition or whatever, the administrative aspect of the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape, because of our history, the pre-apartheid history as well, the colonial legacy. It has got a administrative infrastructure and a bureaucratic infrastructure that cannot be compared to any part of the country, regardless of who governs. So even when we were there, things end up running smoothly. For us here, it goes beyond an issue of administration. It's about the equity in terms of service delivery. The equity in terms of our poor and working class communities, whom I know are the majority who are watching.
Yeah.
Are they being serviced? Are the Muslim community, for example, are the Muslim community's rights being guaranteed by a DA-led city of Cape Town, or a DA in George or in Knysna when they were there that opposed the building of a mosque, for example? So we are not saying service delivery, efficiency will always be there, yeah. But it's about where.
On that, the DA governments on this narrative of competent, corrupt-free governance, in the Western Cape and where elsewhere. What is your core counter narrative? Is it that the DA's governance is a mask for exclusion and ignoring the poor, or that the ANC is now more competent, humble party, ready to deliver better, than the DA and other parties?
Look, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think it's a combination. Firstly, number one, in addition to, we've realized many faults. But also the ANC is a big political party. It governs more than where the DA governs. So of course there's going to be instances where the ANC governs, or departments led by certain ANC ministers, where wrong things would have happened and where inefficiencies would have happened, and it's going to be more exposed. And we learn from that. The DA is not given much responsibility. But we have seen, I think the DA are now in the Western Cape and Cape Town, where we as the ANC were a few years ago in the country. There's sins of incumbency. There are various, I can point out each and every municipality in the West. For example, now you found not too far away in Bergrivier municipality, where councillors were overpaid. They were overpaid. You've got cases of nepotism in Matsikama. George, the reason as to why 4 DA ward councillors have left and gone to the PA is because of allegations around nepotism and corruption. So it's not to say that it's mutually. We've seen what's happening in the city of Cape Town at the moment around waste management, many of these issues. So I think it's a combination of everything. I think, yes, the DA, where they have mastered the art, is around the issue of clean audits. So you dump down on service delivery. I give you an example: housing, human settlements. You get a particular budget. They have not delivered housing in terms of the targets that have been set outright. Then what they do closer to the end of the financial year, you revise your targets and you send money back to national before the money can be taken back. So then you come across, oh no, it's a clean audit. These are the kind of things, accounting things that are happening. But that's fine. That's on the one level.
It's lying.
So, but also the ANC have proven where we have co-governed. Even if you look at the GNU with all its shortcomings, we listen. We bring everybody's voices on board. We're not going to be like the big brother in the room that's going to bully everybody. And coming to Johannesburg, the mistake in the Johannesburg experience, which I think voters also need to question and must not make this, is to go and vote for political parties, small popcorn political parties. Not saying that all are a problem, but those who go and who don't stand for anything, who stand for divisive politics, who stand for patronage. So you can say, yes, that a strong coalition in Cape Town and municipalities can defeat the DA, but they must have something ideologically at least in common, principle at least in common, not just for the sake of wanting positions that take the DA out, because then you're going to start fighting over positions.
You spoke of the fact that the ANC listens. Now, one worrying concern for the past couple of months already has been gang violence at the Cape. Now, the people on the Cape Flats, have heard many plans promised for many decades, and beyond calling for more police resources, what is your specific actional critique of the current provincial government safety plans? And what would the ANC do fundamentally different to dismantle gang networks and to protect communities?
Well, certainly. Look, so one of my fundamental critiques, firstly starting at the issue of boots on the ground, I agree with you. Calling for more police is not really a solution to dealing with gang violence. We even had an anti-gang unit that's been put in place. Boots on the ground is not the sustainable solution. You can put leap officers, it's not going to work. You need to be very specific. So firstly, let me go and not play party politics. Let me also be self-critical. At the ANC, and we call for this as the opposition, to national government, to SAPS, it's unacceptable that there's no head of crime intelligence in the Western Cape currently. We need to make sure, and we're going to continue making the call, and we've had these engagements, that national government, national SAPS must appoint a head of crime intelligence in the Western Cape. We don't have a head of crime intelligence.
And this call has been made how long?
Look, I think the vacancy hasn't been a very long vacancy, but we've been making the call for the past few months. And what we have heard, what we have picked up is that the moves are now for a head of, but we want somebody who's competent. We're not going to, as politicians, say, oh, it must be, because that will be interfering. But we need a competent, and we believe that within the current personnel that are there in SAPS, there are people who are capable. We've got our own, even from our own community, from our own communities in the Cape, that have the ability to take up that particular position or experience inside of SAPS. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure you'll do your research as a media person. Now, that's at the one end. At the provincial level, the critique for me is the safety plan does not have any element speaking to extortion. There's no strategy. If you read, there's nothing about extortion. We are saying at least let's have an element, let's ensure. And how do you deal with extortion? Because extortion is linked to gang activity.
Yeah.
Right? And I spoke about crime intelligence. What we had when we governed was a program which the provincial government had in place, where you would work closely with SAPS to get rid of the high flyers. Right? So we need to ensure, if we come into government in the Western Cape, which is something 2029 is the next election, we will have a focus program working with communities, where communities, so Mitchell's Plain must identify who are the high flyers in Mitchell's Plain. Right. Identify who are the high flyers.
How, for the ordinary person,
Yes.
They don't want to look and listen and hear the bureaucratic terms.
No. Who are the big gangsters? I want to say, who are the big gangsters?
They just want the solution to the problems that they have.
Who are the big drug dealers?
Because we have so many deaths.
Yes.
Our communities are being held to ransom.
Agreed.
Many of our children have died as a result of stray bullets.
Agreed.
Things are just getting worse.
Completely.
The result is that people are getting poorer because they cannot go to work.
Exactly.
They cannot move
So
around.
we need to find a way, and what we are proposing is, let's put in resources. Provincial government again must revive what was known as Bambanani. You put in resources, assist, even provide stipends and money to people in communities. Not talking just about neighborhood watches and CPFs.
Yeah.
Strengthen the street committees. Also have eyes and ears within the communities to identify who are the major recruiters for the gangs, who are the high flyers here. And then that information can then be provided via provincial government, via the network to SAPS. The arrests are made. We saw some of these arrests being made when we were governing at that time, for example. So that's at the one end on the crime fighting issue. In terms of the sustainable solution, Sheikh, we are serious to say that you are not going to tackle crime if you do not tackle the socio-economic conditions. So we need to ensure, for example, we will bring back, the Western Cape is the only province that doesn't have a youth council in the province and a youth strategy. We'll bring that back, which we had when Premier Rasool was there before, to revive the Western Cape Youth Council, so that you have a dedicated unit in provincial government purely focused on finding strategies to empower young people, particularly in gang-infested areas. Because if young people are not provided with an alternative, if young people are not going to, for example, have a one-stop shop to say, if I've got an idea of having a small business, a coffee shop, a game center in Mitchell's Plain, and get the necessary funding from government for it with all the red tape, how to go beyond the red tape, that young person could potentially go and become a gangster or become a drug dealer. That's a source of entrepreneurship. So ours is to say, yes, let's tackle the issues, crime intelligence, empower communities to help in the fight with crime. That's on the one end. But the other end is to say, provide alternatives. And provide alternatives by ensuring that we have a program in place at the level of provincial government, because provincial government is closer to the people than what national is. National will provide the money, but provincial needs to be that interface. And even at local government level, the city, instead of putting all the money into LEAP offices, those resources can actually go into practical empowerment programs. We've got, the city of Cape Town has got a junior council, right? There's a junior mayor. Those are just symbolic. That sit there just as school kids. Those resources can actually be used to fund a youth development strategy to make sure that young people are assisted to open up businesses.
Talking about business and especially our economy.
Yes.
Now the pressure from especially the USA, the introduction of tariffs. I mean, I think no other province has been hit as hard necessarily as the Western Cape. How do we protect, especially the vulnerable amongst our communities? Because the ones that really suffer are not those who are doing the manufacturing, because they have somehow been protected by certain institutions like government. But our poorer communities, the people who works on the farm, those are dependent on them. Those businesses that is related to those very activities of agriculture, etc. How do we protect them? And what is your plan to protect, from any type of fallout, protect those communities?
But I think the fallout is happening. And yes, people, firstly, we need to understand that we could have gone a route of saying no for the sake of protecting our agricultural sector. Let's not go to the ICJ. But we've remained firm. So I need to put that on record. Now, in the context of remaining firm and principled, we also need to be wise. I think firstly at the level of the engagements with the United States, those are still ongoing at the national level, trying to find a solution. But in the context that a solution is not found, what needs to happen and what the ANC has been pursuing, even for the Western Cape, here as an opposition, we've been doing that. We've reached out to consulates, for example, right? Particularly who are not following the current, for example, with the US kind of exit. I don't know if you've seen, there's been excitement on the part of the European Union, who have not normally been really our friends all the time, but there's been excitement, particularly at the economic level. Now
there's a void, there's a vacuum.
There's a void. Now
they can fill that vacuum.
Yes, now our agricultural produce, there's a lot of potential for agricultural produce in the European countries.
And also East.
And then now going to the next, Canada, but also the East. So the Chinese, for example, there's a massive potential for, particularly also for our citrus produce as well. We have, and there's a lot of work happening in that regard, particularly at the national level, including here. They've been hesitant. I mean, we know that the current MEC for agriculture is considered a persona non grata in China. because of undermining the one China policy, but not to say that we intervened in it. We actually met with the Chinese to say, don't allow that to block investment. Let's still bring Chinese business on board. Let's find a way. So I think work is happening in that regard. But beyond government to government, what we are saying must happen, what we would encourage even as an opposition here, and that speaks a lot because my portfolio as the leader of the opposition, part of it is the channel that the opposition have to the foreign missions in the province. So and that's at an official level. Foreign missions engage with the leader of the opposition at an official level as they engage with the premier. But also to make sure that through that we bring foreign investment opportunities to our agricultural space, even to our hawkers, for example, even to our mass fruit producers here. And there's potential.
Talking about potential, BRICS and the Western Cape government.
Yes.
BRICS and the Western Cape government.
Mm.
What type of relationship is there? And what is the ANC within the Western Cape government?
Yes.
You know, or rather as a future Western Cape government, you know, how do they, you know, expect to expand that type of relationship so that, you know, there's greater investment within
Yes.
the Western Cape?
Because currently, and this is what the point I was also making, not only BRICS, even your eastern countries. I mean, there's Pakistan, for example, where they are willing to purchase even mangoes from us. But there's blockages, there's this, there's that. There's the rice that we produce. There's the meat that we produce. Halal meat in the Cape, where there's now a shortage in the Middle East and many Muslim countries. And there's an opportunity in the Western Cape, I'm saying that. But just at the level of BRICS, what you find here, unfortunately, is that yes, the Western Cape government, I'm not saying they don't trade with the Chinese or the Indians and with the Russians and with the Brazilians, but it's kind of like a dumbing down. We are saying that at least with an ANC government in the Western Cape, the economic relations with the BRICS countries is going to be better because we understand the geopolitics. We understand the national positioning with regards to some of the BRICS countries. There's a familiarity. But we are not going to have the BRICS relationship to be something that's just a symbolic one and government to government. It must be people to people. For us, it's about ensuring. So, for example, if we've got solid BRICS relationship with the Chinese, for example, and you're bringing in Chinese business at that level, we also want to make sure that small and medium enterprises here in the Cape benefit from a relationship with China, a relationship with Brazil.
No, that is just it. You know,
And that's where we want to play.
Once I was in a workshop, and this person, you know, was sharing her experience, especially in Japan, and the amount of micro and medium businesses in Japan, it is so massive, and it drives almost 50% or more of the economy.
It's been proven that the informal and smaller economy or the smaller businesses, that is what drives.
Because I feel that, you know, especially those type of businesses in the Western Cape are being stifled, and that is a cause for concern, especially with the amount of unemployment.
So what we will do,
youth, there's no opportunities.
So what we will do, Sheikh, we will ensure that we reduce the red tape and empower smaller medium enterprises to become players at the international level. I give you the thing. When we governed, we established Westgrow. Now Westgrow is there now. Westgrow is supposed to be like an investment arm of the Western Cape government, bring businesses closer to foreign business and this type of thing. Currently it's doing that for the big players. We will make sure that we bring it back to what it was originally. We know cases even in our own community of many small, very small business owners at that time who have then later become empowered because of what Wesgro was able to do for them. Ours is to say, let's bring that back. Let's ensure that a Wesgro, as an arm of provincial government, is able. I'll give you a practical example. If the Premier is going on an international visit to another country, they get to take a contingent of business people with them as well. That we will ensure that that contingent is not only big business. Your small and medium enterprise owners are going with, and they are funded to go. They may not even afford the ticket, but they are funded. They're able to go with, for example, see the opportunities that are there, and then practically ensure that those opportunities come to them, and get the businesses right. Make sure that the necessary infrastructure is there for them to be able to enter the market.
Khalid, I would not be able to conclude this interview now unless I ask these questions. The ANC government has committed itself many years ago to close the Israeli embassy in South Africa, but to date it's still business as usual. In addition to that, the South African company Glencore, of which its boss Patrice Motsepe, is rumored to be the next ANC president. It still supplies Israel with 20% of its coal products, which means that we provide the fuel to an ongoing genocide whilst we have taken Israel before the ICJ. So what is this type of hypocrisy? What is it that the African government wants to do? Is it they want to perpetuate genocide, or they want to take hold Israel accountable, for the crimes?
Now, look, I think two-pronged. Let me go into the issue of the embassy first. Look, initially, I must say, the ANC never had a position that the embassy must be closed in the early years, even in the Mandela days. In the Mandela days, the first stance was to support Palestine, but there must be an embassy of it. And they've been, even in the Mbeki days, even in the early Zuma days, this policy around closure, or not closure, downgrade, the policy of the ANC was never to say we close the Israeli embassy. It was saying downgrading the embassy and downgrading our there, and there we don't have, it's now a liaison office. And obviously the considerations that were taken into account was also our own engagements with the resistance movements, to say, look, there needs to be a channel when it comes to engagement, but also some of the realities around ensuring that we get aid there, that our people, when they go to, for example, when people are stranded, we're not only then able, because we do have an embassy in Palestine, in the Palestinian Authority territory, but what happens when people are not there? So there's practical reasons that were there. However, there was a resolution taken in Parliament, which the ANC supported, to say that the Israeli embassy must be closed. And we are still pursuing that. I'm not going to make many excuses. National government, for example, has said that, yes, we're not saying the decision is not there, but it lies with cabinet now in terms of the implementation. Time and space, how it will be implemented. Also, the Israelis, I don't know if you remember, but when we went to the ICJ, the Israelis voluntarily left as well. So the level of interaction with the embassy is not what it would have been, but I do understand the fact that we do need to move fast on it. And we, inside the ANC position, is still that the embassy needs to be closed, and we'll continue to put pressure on our deployees in government for that. Glencore. Let me tell you about Glencore. So Glencore, we share the same view, that it's wrong, it should not be happening. Yes, we've put the regulations are there on the state-to-state business, but I think...
But why do we maintain economic ties with Israel?
We do not have at a state level economic ties with Israel. Private sector people are doing it, and again, I'm not going to justify. We need to strengthen the legislation when it comes to the private sector trading with countries that are genocidal and that is why we are supporting, for example, the apartheid bill that is now in its kind of
Infancy.
yes, infancy, but not too much of an infancy. There's a draft bill now there.
Okay.
So once we need to have that legislation, so we can say based on that, Glencore, Patrice Motsepe, the nominations for the presidency of the ANC has not even opened as yet.
Okay, so that means that all the rumors that's about, with
It's coming in.
Ramaphosa
I mean, we
being,
don't even
being
know.
called upon to step down. and
Yes,
that-
no.
Those are just rumors.
I mean, let me say, Ramaphosa is not going to step down. He'll conclude his term.
So there
as
was
the
no
ANC.
call for him to step down by.
No, that is a rumor. Maybe some people outside would have wanted that to happen, but people who have been accused of it have denied it. And also, it's unrealistic. Remember the way it works in the ANC. If you're the ANC president, it's very difficult to take you out as the president of the country. And a special Congress needs to be called. An NEC can't recall just the president of the actual ANC. Even when Jacob Zuma was taken out as the remember there was a stage in the time of Mbeki when Zuma was deputy president of the ANC and of the Republic. Around the Shabir Sheikh allegations, President Mbeki relieved him of his responsibility as a deputy president of the country. But he was still the deputy president of the ANC because the term was still. If you want to remove a president of the ANC, you need to call for an early special Congress. We had a National General Council now. I was there. That discussion didn't even arise. So the president will finish his term as the president of the ANC and of the country. What sometimes does happen, and we've got to be open to that reality, is if a president of the ANC comes in 2 years before the next general election, sometimes if that president feels and the collective feels that that president must now take the ANC as a sitting president into the elections, while already sitting as a president of the country, then that's something that has happened. You've had President Motlanthe replacing, being a caretaker when Mbeki was out. You've had Jacob Zuma coming out and Ramaphosa coming in, but that's because of the nature of the contestation. I'm hoping, and judging how things are, that whoever wins the presidency of the ANC in 2027 is not going to want to go and ask and ensure that the current sitting president steps down before 2029.
Last question. What do you say to those? Why should voters in the Western Cape and countrywide,
Yes.
vote for the ANC in the upcoming elections?
Because I've said it at the beginning. The ANC, notwithstanding our faults, in principle, in terms of our policies, in terms of what we stand for, we still represent the best interests of our people. We're a human rights based, our stance at the ICJ has shown that we are willing to even sacrifice our own well-being, our own positioning, to fight a principled and ethical fight for the sake of our people. So even if we make mistakes, you'll be able to come to us and say, you know what, you are not moving in line with what you actually stand for. And the door will always remain open for criticism and to building on that criticism. We are not arrogant.
Khalid, Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah
fiik. I really appreciate that.
Right.
I hope it gives brings some clarity to some of the things that people have questioned.
And we're always willing to engage more if there's more questions.
There's a lot of ordinary people, just ordinary people, who does not have the education or understanding about how politics really work, but they would have a better clarity on certain things now that you have given
Most
some.
certainly. No.
Yeah.
Shukran, Sheikh. Shukran for having me, inshallah.